My name is Evelyn Carter. I am 67 years old, a retired nurse living in Bloomington, Indiana. For the last 5 years, I have been treated less like the matriarch of this family and more like a housemaid who happens to live here. I used to think keeping quiet and doing everything myself would keep peace in my son's marriage. I was wrong. It started the moment Daniel married Lacey. She walked into my home with her sharp smile and sharper tongue, making herself comfortable, as if she owned the place. At first, I tried to be kind. I made coffee when she asked. I cleaned up after her girls' nights or my kitchen. I cooked for every dinner party she wanted to host, pretending it was no trouble. I told myself it was temporary, that Daniel would see her true colors eventually. But 5 years is a long time to wait, and my patience had worn down to dust. That cold December afternoon, the sky heavy with gray clouds, Lacey swept into my kitchen like a queen, arriving at her palace. Her heels clicked against the tile, echoing in my skull like warning bells. She wore a velvet green dress, one that probably cost more than my monthly pension. Her perfume filled the air, sharp and suffocating. She dropped her purse on my counter and smiled at me with that smug expression I knew too well. "Marvelous news, Evelyn," she announced, sliding into one of my kitchen chairs. "My entire family is coming here for Christmas. Only 22 people. It will be perfect." Her words dropped like stones into the silence. 22 people. She might as well have said 200. She said it like I was a machine, designed to roast turkeys, bake pies, scrub bathrooms, and smile for her photographs. I gripped the edge of the counter to steady myself as she rattled off the list of relatives: her uncle Javier, cousin Marisa, brother-in-law Victor, nieces, these, nephews, second cousins. She spoke quickly, like she was reciting a grocery order. Then she leaned back, crossed her legs, and added, "Of course, you'll handle everything: the cooking, the cleaning, the decorations. You always make things look so perfect." For years, I would have forced a smile and said, "Yes, Lacey." But something inside me snapped that day. Maybe it was the memory of her laughing while I scrubbed dishes at midnight. Maybe it was the sight of her expensive dress bought with money Daniel didn't have. Or maybe it was simply because I had finally reached the end of myself. I turned slowly, met her eyes, and said the one word she never expected: "Perfect." Her smile widened for a second, thinking I had agreed. Then I added, calm as stone, "It will be a perfect Christmas for you all, because I won't be here." The color drained from her face, as if she had seen a ghost. And for the first time in 5 years, I felt alive. Lacey blinked at me, her mouth opening and closing like a fish pulled from water. For once, she was speechless. Her manicured fingers trembled against the porcelain coffee cup, the clink of china echoing in the silence. Finally, she managed to choke out, "What do you mean you won't be here?" "Exactly what you heard," I said, my voice even. "I'm going on vacation. You can cook, clean, and host on your own. I am not your maid." She shot up from the chair, heels hammering against the floor. "This is ridiculous. Daniel is not going to allow this." There it was, the slip. She didn't say, "Ask Daniel." She said, "Allow." That was how she thought of me, like some disobedient servant who needed to be corrected by her husband. As if on cue, the front door opened, and Daniel walked in. Tired from work, Lacey rushed to him, like a child crying to a parent, her voice sharp and panicked. "Daniel, your mother has lost her mind. She says she's leaving us right before Christmas, with my entire family coming." I stayed by the counter, arms crossed, watching. Daniel rubbed his temples, sighed, and came into the kitchen with that weary look he had worn ever since he married her. "Mom," he said in the patient, patronizing tone that made me feel smaller than I'd ever admit, "don't you think you're being a little dramatic?" Dramatic. My voice was calm, but my heart pounded. "You expect me to cook and clean for 22 strangers without even asking. That isn't dramatic, Daniel. That's disrespectful." "Come on, Mom," he said, stepping closer. "It's Christmas. It's just 1 week. Everything goes back to normal after normal." His normal where I was invisible except when I was serving. Lacey cut in, her voice rising. You can't just abandon us. Some relatives are coming from out of the country. My uncle Javier already bought plane tickets. My cousin Marissa cleared her calendar. Do you realize how selfish you sound? Selfish? I asked quietly. For refusing to be your unpaid housekeeper? Daniel tried again, lowering his voice as if soothing a patient. Maybe you're going through, I don't know, hormonal changes. You've been sensitive lately. Hormonal changes. He reduced my fury and exhaustion to biology. I felt the anger burn hotter, but I kept my voice cold. This isn't about hormones. It's about respect, something neither of you has shown me in years. Lacey's eyes narrowed, like a snake preparing to strike. If you leave, you will ruin everything. Do you even understand how important this Christmas is for us? My family is wealthy. They could help Daniel's business if they're impressed. We need this to be perfect. Finally, the truth slipped out. It wasn't about family. It was about money, connections, and appearances. I smiled faintly. Then I suppose you should have thought of that before assuming I would be your servant. Lacey's face twisted, and Daniel's eyes darted nervously between us. For the first time, I felt the balance of power tilt, just slightly, in my direction. Once I had gathered enough evidence, I knew silence alone would not save me. I needed allies. But not just anyone. People whose voices Lacey could not dismiss with a laugh or a flip of her hair. She had built her image on her family's admiration, bragging constantly about her perfect life and her generous mother-in-law. If they discovered the truth from me, her world would begin to collapse. I started carefully. The first person I reached out to was Uncle Javier, a respected cattle rancher from Texas. Lacey often boasted about his wealth and how his approval could change everything for Daniel's business. I sent him a polite email, phrasing it as a concerned inquiry. I told him I was worried about the financial stress Daniel and Lacey were under. And by accident, I attached a scanned copy of one of the credit card statements, nearly $12,000 in unpaid charges, all in Daniel's name, but clearly not his spending. His response came the next day, short and furious. Mrs. Carter, I had no idea my niece was drowning in debt. I want to speak with her immediately. This is unacceptable. The second was cousin Marissa, a banker from Ohio with a reputation for being precise and sharp. I attached a different set of documents to my email to her, loan applications with inflated income figures and forged pay stubs. I wrote that I was worried Daniel might be implicated in something he didn't understand. Marissa's reply was immediate and blunt. Thank you for your honesty. Lacey has been lying to us for years. I intend to address this in person at Christmas. Do not tell her we've spoken. Finally, I reached out to Victor, her brother-in-law from Florida, a real estate broker. Lacey had been pushing Daniel to sell my house, dangling the promise of Victor's connections to make it happen. I attached a simple message. Victor, I believe Lacey may have spoken to you about selling my home. Please know this house belongs solely to me, and it will never be for sale. His reply sealed my plan. Mrs. Carter, I am furious. Lacey led me to believe you had given her permission to list your home. I wasted weeks researching properties for nothing. She will answer for this when I see her. 3 replies, 3 storms brewing quietly, waiting for their moment. And I, the woman they had all underestimated, had lit the match. I smiled as I closed my laptop. Lacey thought she was orchestrating a grand Christmas designed to impress. What she didn't know was that I had already placed the cracks in her stage. When her relatives arrived, expecting a flawless holiday, they would instead find the rotten foundation she had built on lies. And I would not need to raise my voice or lift a finger. All I had to do was disappear. The snow began to fall on December 22nd, quiet flakes swirling across my yard. To anyone else, it looked like the calm before Christmas. But for me, it was the calm before a storm I had carefully designed. At dawn, I packed 2 suitcases. I folded clothes with deliberate calm, each shirt and sweater a reminder that I was finally doing something for myself. My good china, silver flatware, and embroidered tablecloths were already locked away in the cedar trunk in my bedroom. The refrigerator and pantry, empty. I had donated everything the week before to the food pantry in town. If Lacey wanted to feed 22 people, she would have to learn the cost of running a household. Before leaving, I wrote a short note in my neatest handwriting. Have decided to leave early for my trip. The house is in your hands. Enjoy your perfect Christmas, Evelyn. I placed it on the kitchen table, beside the spare keys, where Lacey would find it the moment she came in demanding coffee. But my destination was not what I had told them. To Daniel and Lacey, I had spoken vaguely about visiting my sister in Chicago. In truth, I had reserved a suite at a quiet lakeside inn in Brown County, just an hour away. From there, I could watch the chaos unfold without lifting a finger. The taxi arrived promptly at 7. As the driver loaded my bags, I looked back at the house I had lived in for 32 years. For a moment, sadness pricked at my chest. This had been my sanctuary, then my prison. Now it was about to become the stage for my daughter-in-law's downfall. By 10 o'clock, I was sipping hot tea in a sunlit room overlooking the frozen lake. Silence surrounded me, broken only by the crackle of the fireplace. My phone buzzed non-stop, messages stacking up. 7 missed calls from Daniel, 9 from Lacey, a string of frantic texts. I ignored them all. At 11, Daniel's voicemail came through, his voice tight with panic. "Mom, please pick up. We found your note. Lacey's family arrives in 2 days, and there's no food. What are we supposed to do?" Then came Lacey's message, her voice shrill and cracking. "Evelyn, you cannot do this to me. I promised everyone a perfect Christmas. Where is the turkey? Where are the decorations? Why is everything gone? You have to come back." I smiled, stretched my legs toward the fire, and turned the phone face down. For the first time in 5 years, I was not the one scrambling to solve their problems. They would have to face the consequences themselves. And the best part, tomorrow, when Javier, Marissa, and Victor arrived earlier than planned, the real fireworks would begin. The morning of December 23rd arrived sharp and cold. At the inn, I enjoyed Eggs Benedict with smoked salmon, while my phone vibrated endlessly on the table. By then, I had more than 30 missed calls. I knew why. Lacey's relatives were arriving earlier than anyone expected. At 8:15 a.m., a new voicemail came through. It wasn't Daniel or Lacey this time. It was a deep, commanding voice. "Mrs. Carter, this is Javier. We are 15 minutes from your home. I look forward to meeting you." I almost laughed. How perfect. He expected a gracious hostess waiting with fresh coffee and holiday warmth. Instead, he would find a frantic daughter-in-law scrambling to explain the unexplainable. I pictured the scene clearly. The knock at the door. Lacey opening it in wrinkled clothes, her hair half-brushed, eyes puffy from crying. Behind her, Daniel pale with exhaustion. And then the sight that would crush her carefully crafted story. Bare counters, empty fridge, no decorations, no feast. Just a hollow promise, collapsing under its own weight. At 9 o'clock, the texts began flooding in. "Daniel, Mom, please answer. Javier is furious. He wants to know why nothing is ready. Lacey, you're destroying me. They think I lied. They think I made everything up. Please, just tell them you left for an emergency." I let the messages sit while I poured another cup of coffee. At last, I opened one email, this time from Marissa. Her words were clipped and professional. "Mrs. Carter, we are here. There is nothing prepared, and Lacey cannot explain herself. Is there something we should know?" The moment had come. I typed my reply slowly, savoring every keystroke. "Dear Marissa, I regret that my sudden trip has caused confusion, but I believe it is important for you to speak directly with Lacey about her financial choices and her plans regarding this house. The documents I sent earlier reflect only part of the truth. Sincerely, Evelyn." I pressed send and leaned back. The silence after hitting that button felt like thunder. Not long after, my phone rang again. I recognized Javier's voice immediately when I answered. His tone was ice. "Mrs. Carter, forgive me, but what is going on here? My niece insisted you were hosting us, yet the house is barren. And these bank statements, are they authentic?" "They are," I replied calmly. "Every charge, every loan application." "Lacey never expected you to see them." A heavy pause followed, broken only by muffled voices in the background. Raised, angry, demanding. Then Javier said, his voice low with restrained fury, "She will answer for this." Tonight I ended the call and closed my eyes, a smile tugging at my lips. The stage was set. The perfect Christmas Lacey had promised was gone, and in its place, the reckoning had begun. Christmas Eve dawned gray, the kind of Indiana morning where frost clings to every branch and silence weighs heavy. But inside my house, silence was impossible. Through another update from Marissa, I learned the night before had ended in chaos. Pizza boxes stacked on my dining table, Lacey's sobs echoing upstairs, Daniel pacing like a trapped animal. And this was only the beginning. At exactly 10 o'clock, a knock rattled my front door. Not from relatives this time, but from Mr. Harlan, my lawyer. His leather briefcase in hand, his coat dusted with snow, he looked like the very embodiment of authority. When he stepped into the living room, the chatter died instantly. Lacey sat on the sofa, pale and blotchy, her designer sweater wrinkled. Daniel hovered nearby, jaw tight. Around them, relatives lined the walls, Javier's eyes sharp with fury, Marissa clutching a folder, Victor staring at the bare walls in disbelief. "Good morning, Mr. Harlan said smoothly, placing the briefcase on the coffee table. "I am here on behalf of Mrs. Evelyn Carter. We have documents that need to be reviewed." Lacey shot up, her voice cracking. "Why is there a lawyer here? What is this?" Javier folded his arms. "Sit down, Lacey. You've done enough talking." Harlan opened the briefcase, producing a neat stack of notarized papers, his voice carried with the precision of a judge. "First, this home has been transferred into a protective trust. It cannot be sold, mortgaged, or used as collateral under any circumstances without Mrs. Carter's consent. Not now, not ever." Daniel's head snapped up. "What? But we—" His voice trailed off when Harlan met his eyes. "Second," Harlan continued, "residency agreements have been amended. Mrs. Carter retains full ownership. Access to this property is by her invitation only. That means, Lacey, you no longer have unrestricted entry." Lacey's face drained of color. "That's insane." "This is Daniel's house, too." "No," Marissa said firmly, waving the folder she carried. "It's not. And these," she opened the file, pulling out printed emails and loan papers, "prove you've been lying to us all. You claimed Evelyn promised you this house in her will. You used that lie to borrow money. That is fraud." Gasps rippled through the room. Daniel staggered back, shaking his head. "Lacey, tell me this isn't true." But she couldn't. Her lips moved soundlessly, no words coming. Javier stepped forward, his voice like steel. "You embarrassed this family. You deceived us. Whatever support you hope to gain for Daniel's business is finished. Every loan is canceled. Every favor withdrawn. You have burned every bridge." Lacey broke then, collapsing onto the sofa in tears. She screamed that it was unfair, that I had set her up, that everyone had turned against her. But the evidence spoke louder than her wails. And for the first time in years, the spotlight was no longer on me. It was squarely on her. I arrived at the house just before noon on Christmas Eve, suitcase in hand, the frost crunching beneath my boots. The door opened before I could knock. Daniel stood there, eyes hollow, shoulders slumped, as if the weight of the entire year had fallen on him in one night. "Mom," he whispered, voice trembling, "you came back." "Yes," I said simply, stepping past him into the living room. The sight nearly stole my breath. Relatives clustered around in stiff silence. Javier stood tall, arms folded across his chest. Marissa clutched papers like weapons. Victor leaned against the mantel, jaw tight. and on the sofa sat Lacey, mascara streaked down her cheeks, her expensive sweater twisted at the hem, looking nothing like the queen who once ordered me about. Mr. Harlan was still there, briefcase closed at his side. He gave me a small nod. "Mrs. Carter, everything has been explained. But they're waiting to hear from you." I walked slowly to the center of the room. For years I had been invisible here, a shadow in my own home. But in that moment, every eye was on me. "For 5 years," I began, my voice steady though my heart pounded. "I scrubbed your dishes, cooked your meals, decorated your holidays, and stayed silent while my dignity was chipped away piece by piece. I told myself it was worth it to keep the peace, to stay close to my son. But peace without respect is slavery, and I will not be a servant in my own house anymore." Lacey shook her head violently. "You're twisting everything. You made me look bad in front of my family." "No," Javier cut in sharply. "You did that yourself." I turned to Daniel. His eyes were wet, shame carved into every line of his face. "Son, I love you, but you must choose what kind of man you will be. One who defends his wife's lies, or one who finally demands honesty and respect. I cannot make that decision for you." Then I looked at Lacey directly. "You will repay every dollar you borrowed under false pretenses. You will apologize to every relative you deceived, and you will learn to live within your means, without leaning on me or anyone else to clean up your messes." She collapsed back against the sofa, sobbing too hard to answer. I straightened my shoulders. "This Christmas is not about gifts or appearances. It is about truth. And the truth is simple. A family built on lies cannot stand. Respect is the foundation. Without it, even the most beautiful home crumbles." The room was silent. Outside, the church bells rang for noon, their echo carrying across the frozen air. For the first time in 5 years, I felt free. This was my house, my life, my future, and I had finally reclaimed them all. Looking back, I realized the greatest mistake I ever made was believing silence would buy me love. For years, I traded away my peace and dignity just to avoid conflict, hoping my son and his wife would eventually notice my sacrifices. But silence only taught them that I could be used without consequence. Walking away, even for a short time, forced them to face the reality I had been carrying alone. Lacey's lies collapsed under the weight of truth, and Daniel had no choice but to see what he had ignored for far too long. The lesson is clear. Respect is not a favor. It is the foundation of any relationship. Without it, family ties rot into chains of manipulation. Sometimes the most loving act is not giving more, but drawing the line that says, "No more." Because real love cannot exist without respect.